Hello and welcome to the podcast with myself, Matt Davey, and Connor Godfrey. In this podcast, we are joined by Southampton and Blackpool legend Brett Ormerod. Brett speaks about the players that influenced him as an apprentice at Blackburn Rovers, cleaning Alan Shearer's boots, injuries to cup finals and former managers in Gordon Strachan, Harry Redknapp, and Ian Holloway, with a few funny stories along the way. Hopefully you have as much fun listening to this as we had making it. Enjoy.
Who made you fall in love with football? Who were your idols growing up? Was it a striker or?
To be honest, I used to. Well, obviously, I used to support Blackburn Rovers for my sins, who were always the old Division Two team. But when I was a kid at school, everyone liked Man United, so me and a few of my mates used to like Everton as well, like a Division One team. So the great Howard Kendall teams, 85, 86. We Graham Sharp, Peter Reid, Paul Bracewell, Trevor Stevens, Adrian Heath, Gary Lineker came on from Andy Gray, I think. I used to like that, as well as Simon Garner, Scott Sellers, and Colin Henry at Blackburn, Mark Patterson, who was playing at Blackburn in that era.
Nice, yeah, some good names in there. Gary Lineker, probably the most well-known one. But would you say you watched more strikers then? Like when you were growing up, did you want to be a striker, or was it just what you were good at?
No, I started off as a midfield. I started as a right winger. I was never a striker, really. I was a right-sided midfielder, little winger, that's where I started up most of my career. I was as an apprentice at Blackburn. James Beats was a year younger than me. He came. I started my apprenticeship at Blackburn in '93, but I was still a winger. And Beats was a centre forward. He came in '94. So yeah, I mean, up to being 17, I pretty much played on the right wing.
So would you have been around the club when they won the Premier League?
Yeah, I was. That was my last year at Blackburn. I left Blackburn in '95 when they won the Premiership. Obviously, I'd seen them from being a little kid and watched Ewood Park get transformed from being the old stadium that it was. The Riverside, which has Rovers on it, which used to be was the best stand. It had just been done when I first started going on to it now being like, the worst one out of the four. They did the Nuttall Street stand, which is where I used to sit, the Blackburn end and the Darwin end. So yeah, I watched it. I was at the club and watched it. I was lucky enough as part of the playing staff and a Blackburn fan to see it all transform into. We had Don Mackay, manager, when I was a kid. He used to come and give out trophies at my local Sunday league, and then to having Kenny Dalglish and having the likes of Alan Shearer and people like that.
So you were, I mean, this might not be right, this is just kind of what we've been researching. You were released by Blackburn. I guess that's true. What was that like? I mean, your hometown club, and I mean, after that happened, did you ever think about giving up, or did you just know that's what you wanted to do and you kept at it?
I was 18. I was in my second year of my apprenticeship, and I'd had a double hernia operation. I'd had a double hernia since September. We played in a youth team game at Hull, and I'd done my hernia, and I didn't get diagnosed with it then. We didn't. That was just before the academies had all the. We had one physio at the time. The main physio had to look after the kids and the first team, so we pretty much got pushed to the back. So I didn't really get diagnosed with this hernia for about 5 months. So I was in and out of playing, and I fractured my shoulder blade as well. Always in injuries. So my second year wasn't as productive as it should have been, and I ended up getting released. And to be honest, I ended up having the double hernia operation just as I'd got released. And if I'm totally honest, at 18, I pretty much sulking. I was on crutches. So I just had a few drinks with my mates, started going out drinking, and then a friend of my dad's, there was a coach from Accrington Stanley, and a friend of my dad's pulled him and got me in a pub and just said, "Look, get this lad down, Taki Stanley. He's a good player. He's just been released. He's loss of confidence and stuff." And they invited me down, and I went there, and it just snowballed from there. Really, I went to Taki Stanley during the Unibond Prem then, which is one below the conference. I was with a lot of players, ex-Burnley players, who played in the leagues, Bury and some Blackburn ones. They were coming to end their careers and stuff, and they just basically gave me the confidence back. I just started enjoying football again because I pretty much fell out with it for about 4 or 5 months after I left. In between, when I was injured at Blackburn and stuff and getting released, so I never went to Accrington Stanley with any aspirations of thinking, right, this is that. I was, if I'm totally honest, I was probably feeling a bit sorry for myself. I ended up going to Accrington, and it just gave me my confidence back. I just fell in love with football again, and it sort of snowballed from there, really.
Just quickly going back to being an apprentice at Blackburn, how would that be different now, like with the youth team players of today? Like, did you have jobs to like clean players' boots, that sort of thing? Do you get tasks to carry out?
Yeah. We used to have all the set jobs. We used to have 2 or 3 pros you to look after. I had to clean Shearer's boots and Nicky Marker. Wow. I remember getting a rollicking once because Shearer's Umbro signs weren't clean. So I had to jiff them or sieve them. It's called sieve now. It used to be called jiff. He just signed a 2 million deal with Umbro or something. So I used to have to clean his boots and stuff, and I used to have to look after the Brock Hall at the training ground, where all the boots in and hoover everything up. So yeah, we all had jobs. We all had specific things we do. I mean, they don't really do jobs anymore, the kids. They are, compared to when I was a kid, very much pampered. We had to clean. Sometimes we had to clean the stands and stuff. Wasn't as bad as I used to go to college with some of my mates who were at Bury, who were at Preston, who were at Burnley, and they had to clean the stadium. After games and stuff, they got paid £3 or something, and they were literally used as what you probably call it modern day slavery now, compared to what they do now. It was frightening. But so yeah, we all had jobs. I remember Jim Fennell, who was the main youth team coach. You'd be sat, and I lived in Great Ormond, so I had to catch 2 buses to get to Ewood. So I remember we used to be sitting there every day at 5 o'clock, waiting to go home, waiting to get the nod. And Jim Fennell would just go around the training ground, and he used to literally put a white glove on, and just like if anything were dirty or boots were dirty, he'd throw everything down, and you'd all go back in and clean everything again. So yeah, it was it was a nightmare sometimes, but it gave you a good grounding, to be honest.
Did you have much to do with Shearer? Like, if you're cleaning his boots, would he speak to you at all?
Yeah. He used to play a game with me. He used to put 3 egg cups at Christmas. He'd have £1 under one, £50 under another, and £70 under another. And then my wage was £31.50 a week. So if you pick, you're literally doubling your money for your wage. And he used to egg cups, and for 2 years in a row, I picked £1, knowing my luck. So to be fair, he did give me about £40, I think, each year. Yeah, I mean, that was back in the day when like I said, we used to make, if I got on the bench for the reserves and you got on, I think it was £35 appearance money, which was more than my wage. So I think I was on the bench 3 times for the Resis one time because we had a few injuries when I was 17, and I come out with about 150. Used to get paid a weekly wage then in a well-brown wage packet. And I'd tripled my money, so I thought I was down Blackburn Town Centre shopping for Jackie Bottoms and that, buzzing.
And like you said, you went on to Accrington and then Blackpool. You did really well for Blackpool, but in I think it was October 1999, you suffered a broken leg. You sort of briefly touched on injuries earlier, but would you say that moment was perhaps one of the lowest of your career?
It was at the time, because I'd just moved into my first house with my wife. She was pregnant, and at Blackpool then we weren't getting paid big money at all. My money was on appearance money and stuff related. And I remember I played. It was about 3 days after my 23rd birthday, and it was at Wickham. And I went in for a tackle, and the lads hit me, and he snapped right through my shin pad, and he broke both bones in my leg. And I flipped over. I've got it on video. I've got it on highlights somewhere. It's on a videotape. It's that old. My dad's got it. My mum and dad's got it. And I flip over. And the first thing I did in shock was try and stand on it. Well, I stood on my leg and it just collapsed. Wow. So I ended up in Wickham Hospital that night, having my leg manipulated back into place. And that was about October. That was October because it was my birthday month. and I didn't kick a ball again to the following season. And we ended up getting, Nigel Worthington was manager then, he ended up getting sacked at Christmas. Steve McMahon came in. But we were in such a bad position in relegation, we ended up getting relegated that year. So it was a pretty crappy season, to be honest.
And then
if you kick your way down.
Yeah. But then you came back and you had a good season for Blackpool, and the team did really well. And you had the likes of Wigan and Southampton looking at you. How did you sort of know that was going on? Like, how did that come about? How did that make you feel? That sort of thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I just the season after, Steve McMahon came in, I was a bit, and he pulled me once in the gym, and he said, "Look, there's no, don't worry about anything. I've seen you play, and you'll get your chance." And that really settled me down. So, and I went to Lily Show in the summer. I got really fit. Come back pre-season, I was flying. And me and John Murphy played up front with Blackpool. That season, we ended up scoring 50-odd goals between us. We struck up a great partnership, and we got promoted through the playoff final against Leyton Orient at the Millennium. So yeah, I mean, that season was superb. But then the season after, I was just that on a high. I used to go through spells in my career, and I had it at Accrington where everything I ate just went in. And I did it at Accrington. At Blackpool, that was exactly the same. And by September, I think I'd scored 20 goals or something like that in all competitions. Everything I was hitting was flying in. I was just full of confidence. And obviously, there was a lot of teams being linked with a lot of teams and stuff. So, but to be honest, I was just enjoying my football. The lads at Blackpool were a fantastic group of lads. I was very happy. We'd moved into another new house with my wife. My son was, he's about 1 year old and that. And it was just, life was just good, and I was just enjoying football. So I never used to try and let it bother me too much about if anyone's looking, because I always try the impression that if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. It's going to be out of your hands. If someone wants to put a bid in, they're going to put a bid in regardless. So, yeah, I just tried to concentrate on my football, and that's what I did.
Yeah, so, I mean, like you say, all that transfer kind of news persisted, and you end up going to Southampton for, again, might be wrong, 1.75 million, which is a lot of money. I mean, today's standards, perhaps, with massively overinflated prices, not quite as much, but still a lot of money. And, when you move there for that much money, do you feel that pressure of that? Do you feel like the fans get on you more because because it's, for such a huge amount of money, or does it not matter?
Well, I think, there's not a lot you can do about the transfer fee. That's pretty much out of your hands. It's very flattering. I mean, I remember my dad making a joke saying 1.75 million, like laughing. They give me away for free. It's one of them. I mean, it happened so quick. I remember Steve McMahon just pulling me before a game. I think my last game for Blackpool was Port Vale away, and we'd had loads of injuries, so he had to play me. And he just said, "Look, we've pretty much sorted a deal out with Southampton. For God's sake, don't go into any tackles, don't get injured. Just pretty much run round and look like you're trying, sort of thing. But don't get involved in anything." So yeah, that's what. And so I did, but that's not my nature. I played in the game. I remember getting smashed in last minute. One of the defenders, I nicked a ball away from him, and he's absolutely leveling me. And I rolled on, and I was like, I grabbed my ankle, but thankfully it was all right. But I looked up and I could see the bench and Steve McMahon, and I bet the chairman somewhere was in the stand having a cardiac. But there was nothing I could do about it. It was just go for that. I just thought it was going down for talks, to be honest. So me and my agent travelled down and we met Gordon Strachan and Rupert Law, and pretty much they just put a 4.5-year deal in front of me and went, right, this is your terms and stuff. And I just remember being absolutely gobsmacked. I thought, all right, I was like absolutely gobsmacked. So yeah, I signed it there and then I thought, shite, I haven't told my wife. And it was a big move then, because I'd never moved out of Blackburn. I've lived in Blackburn my whole life, and Southampton's as far as you can go before you hit water, really. So, and I'd never signed a contract any longer than a year or a year and a half. I think was the longest I've ever signed a contract. So to be offered a 4.5-year deal, and everything just went so quick, and it was, I don't know, it was, I just remember sat back at the Hilton, staring on my bed, just staring at the roof, at the ceiling, thinking, has that just happened? So yeah, that's how it come about, really.
Well, yeah. So you played for Saints for quite a while, made quite a few appearances. I think maybe you disagree, but I mean, we're Saints fans, so I think we probably both agree. The semi-final, the FA Cup, you scored and set up a goal to send Saints to the final in 2003. What was that like? That must have been amazing.
That it was unbelievable, really. I mean, I'd come to. I think I'd set off that season. I got injured when I first came. I'd done my medial ligament. I think I scored on my debut against Ipswich away, and I'd done my medial ligament, so I was out for a few months, and I didn't come back while literally the last couple of games. So then to start the second season, I'd scored a few against. I scored a hat-trick against Tranmere, I think it was. I've been in and out of reserves and stuff, and then I scored 2 against City, and I got injured again. But I managed to keep playing. But then I went through a rut where I just couldn't score. I remember hitting post, constantly hitting post in some games. And, one of them things, it just wouldn't lie for you. And I think by the time the semi-final come round, I was pretty much like mentally, I'm to keep going, but pretty much, is this ever going to happen? Because it weren't from the lack of trying. So it was, so to score that header was the biggest of, I can't say it without swearing, of relief and just, euphoria you could ever imagine. I mean, I think if you ever see the celebration I'm running off, I'm more surprised than anyone. It was just, because it wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't the best of headers. I'd have some people, keepers saved some great shots off me headers, miles better than that, but the fact that it just got in and stuff, and the atmosphere at Villa Park that day was unbelievable. And it's one of them games that'll stays with you forever.
You disappointed not to win? I mean, obviously you're disappointed not to win the final, but perhaps Arsenal weren't quite at their best. Do you think Saints were unlucky there?
Yeah, I do, because I think when you play the top teams, you need a bit of luck. You always need a bit of luck against the top teams. I mean, I remember one of my first games for Southampton was at Old Trafford, and I was on the bench. I ended up coming on that game. We got spanked 6-0 off United, and Van Nistelrooy got an hat-trick. And I just remember Strachan doing a team talk about keeping it tight for the first 20 minutes. And Paul Scholes hit this 60-yard ball over to Van Nistelrooy. He took it down over his right-hand shoulder and smashed it in from the stupidest angle you've ever seen. And it was like, that game plan's gone out window. And I was on the bench, and I looked over the bench, and Giggs and Beckham were on the bench. And it's like, shit. This is, football. I'm looking around thinking, wow, Old Trafford, 70 odd days, and what am I doing here, sort of thing. It was brilliant, but we got spanked 6-0. And when you played Arsenal and United, that's what could happen to you. I mean, we got beat. I think me and Beats, quite a few was back and rested in the league game, not too long before that game, and we got beat 6-1. I think I can't remember. It might have been little winger, Jimmy Pennant. I think he got hat-trick. But Perez was unbelievable that day. Robert Perez just ripped us apart and stuff. So, we were unlucky that game. I mean, he scored early on, but David Seaman pulled I remember chesting a ball down, and I turned and I hit it on the half volley. And it's one of the best half volleys with my left foot I've ever hit in my life. And as I've hit it, I thought it was in. It was bulleting in top corner, and then this biggest hand you've ever seen just come from nowhere and tipped it wide. And I looked at him, and he to be fair, he looked at me, Seaman, and I just made, you bastard. Laugh. He just laughed at me. So I mean, it was one of them. I always take I always take credit to the fact that Arsenal was running it in the corners with 5-10 minutes to go. And if you've got Thierry Henry, I've always got, someone's once sent me a picture of one where Thierry Henry's in the corner. Me and Chris Morrison are trying to nick the ball back off him in corners. And you think, wow, if you can have some of the best players in the world running the ball in the corner, trying to waste time, then, they must have known they were under, it wasn't as a one-sided final as I think people would have thinking. I've watched it back since, and I think I put Beach through when he scored, and, the offside decision given. But when you look at it, it's touch and go. It really is. So we played well enough that day, I just felt we didn't have that little rub of the green that you need on days where to beat teams like Arsenal and United, you'd need that.
And then obviously going on from that, so you've played like a major part in Southampton getting to the FA Cup final, and then sort of the next season, maybe first team opportunities a bit more limited, and you have loan spells as it Leeds and Wigan. So how did that sort of go down? It must have been quite frustrating, I'd imagine.
It was. I mean, you know, I was, you know, I was never ever, I've ever thought I ever had a regular place at Southampton. Even under Strachan, I mean, even that season we had the great season. You know, I think I got more assists in that season than anyone by far. You know, a lot more than Fabrice Fernandes even. So, you know, I felt I was playing well enough. But they obviously, you know, they brought Kevin Phillips in, who's, you know, I played with Kev at Southampton and Blackpool, and he's probably the best all-round striker I've ever played with, to be honest. You know, he's superb. But I always there was always that bit of frustration, and there was always that bit of thing with me that if I always knew that I had to be playing the best all the time, and that's how I felt, because if I didn't and we got beat, I knew I wouldn't be playing the game after. So I always felt it was always hard to get a proper decent run in the team for me. And to be honest, it was hard because, you know, we were competing. I mean, Marion Pahals, Beats, Joe Tessam. I mean, Joe Tessam was a very, very underrated player. Joe was a machine, you know. He could play up front. He could play in midfield. He had a great engine on him. Marion Pahals, again, he's one of the most talented players I've ever played with. Absolute, you know, on his day. I remember Strachan used to dog Marion because Marion was a great lad, but he could tell you when he was going to be ill. You know, you know, I used to call him Marione. I said, Marione, how are you? And, oh, Brett, I think I'm going to be ill in 2 days, you know. And he'd be like, what? You know, but as a player, he was unbelievable. It was you know, he was 5'5" or something like that. But, you know, his touch was always brilliant. He was always in space. His finishing was fantastic. He could jump like he was 6 foot. You know, for a lad his size, I never seen anyone who could time, you know, headers and stuff. So it was difficult to hold a first-team place down at Southampton. And I didn't mind that. You know, playing in that squad of players and stuff, you know, and being able to contribute and stuff, and knew that I didn't mind that, because I was just happy to be involved in what was a fantastic squad. I mean, we finished 8th that season. We got the cup final. We qualified for Europe, which before, you know, that was unprecedented for a Southampton team. You know, they battled relegation for years after years. So I felt very, you know, I was happy to be around that. But the season after, you know, especially where, you know, I was still in and out, which I didn't mind. But then when Strachan left, you know, things, you know, started to change a bit. We had I mean, don't get me wrong, we had an unbelievable youth team with players coming through all the time. I think I'd been injured, so I ended up going to Leeds, and it was a bit of a snap decision, to be honest, because I wasn't fit when I went to Leeds. And it didn't help that I missed a penalty on my debut and I split my head open. So I've never met a Yorkshireman who never reminds me. So I wasn't really in and out. And then obviously Redknapp came, and I was not, you know, I wasn't any part of his plans whatsoever. So, you know, that's when I started to want to get away, because that's when I was really unhappy. I wasn't enjoying football anymore. And I ended up going to Wigan. I had a really good loan spell at Wigan. And stuff, and then got called back. But that was the most difficult time, I think, when Harry Redknapp was manager, because I felt that whatever he said to me was just a pack of lies. I was pretty depressed. You know, at the end of the day, I was a footballer and I just wanted to play. And it was, you know, a few moves that I wanted seemed to fall through for whatever reason. I'll never know. But yeah, it was a difficult time. It really was.
Okay, so when you've been at Southampton, you had a few managers. So if I just read out their names and you give me their thoughts, if that's okay, just thoughts on them, generally, how they were as a manager. So Gordon Strachan.
One of the best managers I've ever had was Gordon Strachan. Gordon Strachan was, to me, a manager who tried to make you a better player. Very much like Ian Holloway, you know, wanted to make you a better player. Technically, would spend hours with you on a training ground. You know, there was nothing, you know, he wasn't these managers who come in and shoot off. You know, he cared about his players. You know, he was a proper man's manager for me. He never lost an argument, by the way, don't get me wrong. You know, at least I could argue with Holloway and stuff sometimes and that, but with Strachan, I remember Paul Williams just went, don't ever argue with him, because you'll never win. And even if you were right, you weren't. You know, so with it. And half the time, you know, I couldn't tell what he was saying anyway when he got angry, because he shouted that loud. I remember there's only one game. I'll tell you a quick story. When we were playing Liverpool, and that season I think we only got beat twice at home. One was off Liverpool, one was United. I think we got beat 1-0. Emile Heskey, and I came on as sub, and someone got injured, and he called me out, and he was screaming in my ear, and I went, "What?" And he did it about 5 times. And I said, what about 5 times? And he said, if you say what to me one more time, I'll bring you off. So I went, right. He was fuming, he was red and everything. So I ran back on pitch and Beats went, what did he say? And I went, I haven't a clue. So I haven't got a clue. And then after the game, he said, we got it changing him after the game, and he just hammered me for about 10 minutes saying, I told you to drop in and all that. And I just put my head down. I thought I'd just take it because I couldn't tell what he was saying, but, you know, I couldn't keep saying what to him, else he'd have dragged me off. And I mean, he was on telly as well, so.
Paul Sturrock.
Paul Sturrock was all right. I like Paul Sturrock. I think, you know, it was a funny one because he came in at a time when I'd been ill. I got labyrinthitis. I had it twice at Southampton. You know, that it's inner ear infection where your whole room spins. And the first time I got it was when Paul Sturrock, Strachan had left and Paul Sturrock had come in. So I didn't really play under Paul Sturrock for a couple of months. I finished the end of the season. I think I started that game when we drew with Newcastle on Sky, another 3-0 game where it was a fantastic game to play and to watch. It was our last home game of the season. And then just start of pre-season, I think we went away to Sweden. I was involved, you know. He brought Peter Crouch in, you know, so he was playing. And me and Crouchy played up front quite a lot in a few friendlies and got quite a decent partnership going. But it was a weird situation, really, because there was a lot of things in the press coming out from behind the camp. So someone was leaking it, you know, and he was under pressure for me from day one, and it was a bit unfair. And we got beat away at Villa. 2-0, and then I think we'd drawn at home with Blackburn, if I'm right, and then he got sacked. And I remember him coming in and saying he wanted a meeting with everyone in the morning and in the canteen, and we were pretty much thinking like we got a point off Blackburn, or we might even beat Blackburn, to be honest. So we lost one and won one, but I was thinking, you know, and he came in and he was shaking. So obviously, you know, and he was, and I felt sorry for him, to be honest. I didn't feel like he got a fair crack. Maybe, you know, maybe it might have been a bit too big a club. I don't know for him or what, but you know, I'm you know, not, God knows what happened. Only he'll probably know. But yeah, it was. I felt a bit sorry for Paul Sturrock, to be fair.
Steve Wigley.
Steve Wigley was for me. Now Wiggs, I thought he was an amazing coach. You know, and a great bloke and an amazing coach. I think he stepped up to managing. I think, you know, personally, and this is my personal opinion, you know, Wiggs, you might not ask him and he might tell you different, but I thought he was one of them. He was a really good coach, but I think management wasn't for him. I just felt that, you know, I don't know, it's a difficult one, but he just never seemed to look comfortable in the manager's job. From a player's point of view, or from my point of view anyway, where when he was a coach, you know, he's a fantastic coach at pulling to one side, you know, and telling you what you probably needed to know at the right time. So, you know, I think he got a bit overwhelmed with the job. Maybe, I'm not so sure. Again, it's something you'd have to ask him, but that's just how I felt at the time.
Okay, Harry Redknapp.
Well, Harry, obviously, I mean, you know, I could only go off. I mean, you know, he's loved by the country and so I can only go off what I had at Southampton, and I didn't. It was my worst time at Southampton. You know, I'm not saying he's a bad manager. In thing, it was just I was never part of his plans. I didn't feel, and that's fair enough. You know, if you know, it's a man's game, is football. But he never told me that. You know, if he'd have said to me, Brett, you know, you're not part of my plans. We'll help you move on. So. You know, it's a man's game. You get on with it. You might not like it at the time, but you respect that, and that's football through and through. But he never ever gave me that inclination that I wasn't part of his plans. There was always a bit of rope there that you could be involved, and then you wouldn't be. And you know, and it was just things like when he brought me back from Wigan and he played me in the last game of the season at United. You know, and it was like you haven't played me all season. And I was doing well at Wigan, to be honest. I scored a couple of goals for him. They got promotion that year. And stuff. So I always found him. It was virtually impossible to second guess Harry Redknapp. I mean, it is for most managers, but for me, it was just. I just felt that Harry, if he told you something, he always seemed to do the opposite. You know. So and like I say, just the fact that I weren't involved is probably remember the time. It was the most depressing time at Southampton, to be honest.
When Harry Redknapp, you know, was at the club and he signs his son Jamie Redknapp, who I have no doubt is a talented player and, you know, obviously offered something. When that happens, did the player sort of think, oh, he's only got that because he's his son, or is it just, you just rate him off his talent?
No, I mean, to be honest, Jamie Redknapp's, he was an established player. He was an England international, I mean, there are occasions, I think, where some managers push their sons through clubs, but you'll get found out. You can't make a career in football by just being, someone's son. Because in football, you're always having to prove yourself. And Jamie Redknapp was a hell of it. I mean, he played at Liverpool, Spurs, so there was never any question about his talents and his pedigree. I think the only problem with Jamie, and he'll probably admit that himself, is that he had bad injuries, didn't he? I mean, he was a hell of a player, representing England, Liverpool. You don't play for them teams if just because who your dad is. You've got, you're playing top teams there. So you've got to have a lot about you, and he did, and he was a great addition. I felt, I didn't spend that long because I was away at Wigan. I went to Wigan, but I always got on with Jamie, and he was a good player. He's probably coming to the end of his career, and stuff, which he did. I think he might have retired after that, again through injuries. But yeah, I never had a problem with Jamie. I thought he was a good lad when I was at the club. He was always fine with me. He's always bubbling and chirpy with me. So. And I'm a big player. I just treat everyone as I'm treated. So I got on with Jamie, to be honest. There were no problems there.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So after you leave Southampton, you go to Preston North End. Did you have any doubts playing for them? Because obviously they have a bit of a rivalry with Blackpool. Were you a bit worried about how you're going to be received or how your reputation would then be changed at Blackpool?
It was a difficult one because George Burley had come in. And I didn't have George for long, and my contract was it went off then. My contract was finishing, was up at the end of the season with Southampton, and George Burley came in, and I'd spoke with Preston, to be honest. I'd been in contact with someone at Preston, and by then I was ready to leave. I'd had enough. My head had gone. I'd been told this, that, and over it, and then obviously, Redknapp left under suspicious circumstances. He went to Portsmouth. Which that's a book in itself, to be honest. So by then I just wanted to get away. I wanted to play, and I felt a bit sorry for George Bale in the terms that I sort of like ambushed him in his office and said, right, and I just told him everything. I just said, look, I've had enough, and he's like, well, you might be in my plans, and I said, I don't care. I said, I really don't care. I said, I'm not being horrible to you in that. I said, I told him the situation, but he'd been going on for a good year and a bit. And I said, I just need a fresh start. I just needed a fresh start. And Preston came in. And yeah, there is a bit of that with Blackpool, but it's quite a big rivalry up there. But I've never, I've been away for 4.5 years then from Blackpool. It wasn't like I'd gone from one to other and local rivals. I'd had a hell of a long time away. And I'd spent 4.5 years on South Coast. My daughter was born there and I loved it there. But I just felt I was ready for a change. So, and I ended up going to Preston that season, scored on my debut, and I just got that, again, just that love for football again. Just my confidence come back and just enjoying football again and stuff. And then, obviously, I broke my leg in the playoff semi-finals against Leeds. So, yeah, as soon as I'm up, I'm back down again.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So you weren't at Preston for a really long time, and you then went back to Blackpool again. I guess it's kind of the same questions as when you moved to Preston. Was it a bit different because you went from Preston to Black? I mean, were you nervous, or again, was it the same kind of?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was 33 then. At Preston, I'd done quite well at Preston. Again, I'd had injuries. I fractured my shoulder blade, I broke my leg. I never really got a run in the team, but that was through injury, not through, bad performances. When I played, I think I was as good as anyone at the club. I was very confident. I was enjoying my football, but I just couldn't stay injury free at Preston. And then when I went back to Blackpool, and I am one of them. There's only one or two players I think who's played for both and have a good relationship with both sets of fans. And I do a lot of Radio Lancashire now, and we have obviously I do Preston and Blackpool and stuff. So, but at 33, I was out of contract that summer. I went at January. I was out of contract, and I needed to play. I wasn't playing. I've been to Oldham on a loan spell. I fractured my foot, so I'm still injury fine. Fractured my foot in a training session before my first game, and I had an X-ray, and he said there was nothing wrong with it. I played 2 games for Oldham. Turns out I had a spiral fracture in my foot, so that kept me out for 5 months. So I ended up going back to Blackpool at 33, thinking, should I really do this because I had such a good time? And it turned out to be the best decision I ever made in my life. And at 33, I won it under Holloway. We kept up that season. I think I scored against Forest that we drew at home 1-1, and that guaranteed us survival. But the season after at 33, and playing back in my natural position, to be honest, and as a wide, as a front three, but as a midfield, and I think if I'd found that, I always played up as a big man, little man, at 4-4-2 for most of my career. But all the way, I'd been watching where we played, and where I could come into little pockets and stuff, and get turned with the ball, crossing, and I felt like a kid again. And I ended up, obviously, he said to me all the way, he said, "I'll get you back in the Prem," and I laughed at him. And obviously, I ended up scoring the winner in the playoff final against Cardiff, and we got back to the Prem, and it was like at 33, when you think, you're back into your career and it's all going downhill. It was one of the best seasons of my life.
So we were talking about your time at Blackpool, the second time where you had a lot of success. Like you said, in the latter stages of your career. And I guess one of the best moments of your career, I'm sure you'll agree, you scored the winning goal in the 2010 playoff final. What was that like? That must have been unbelievable.
Yeah, it was, the whole season was really. We were relegation favourites, us and Scunthorpe. Us and Scunny had the lowest budgets in the league. So Holloway had come in, he'd been sacked from Leicester a year before. He hadn't had a job, and he just watched Barcelona and Spain play. And he got us in this meeting on the first day, and he said, I've been a manager and a player for God knows how long. I've always played 4-4-2. And this is when 4-4-2 was still pretty entwined in the English game. And he says, excuse me, he said, he said, I've watched Spain and Barcelona, and if I'm going to get sacked again, it'll be playing football that I enjoy watching. Not the old long ball game and in the corners and stuff. So, he said he'd done it with his chickens, and they got it, and honestly, it was surreal. He made us watch Coach Carter, the team bonding, and he was nearly in tears, and it was like, wow. We train in the morning and we were training afternoon in pre-season, and we were watching a video, and it's Coach Carter, and I'm like, what's that? What's Coach Carter like? So we sat down, we watched this video. So I'm going home, my missus rings me, and she said, we're training. I said, we've watched Coach Carter. And he nearly started crying. He was, this is how I want us to be, and all that. I don't know if you've ever seen Coach Carter. It's a great film. But that was his intensity. He was fantastic. He was brilliant at making you feel 10 foot tall. And he had this philosophy of how he wanted to play football, and we pretty much took the lead by storm that year. We dominated games. The running, we were never outside the top 10, but I think we won 10 out of the last 11. And went straight through the playoffs. And in every game in the last 10 games, we went 1-0 down. We always went 1-0 behind. But we had this mentality of, we knew we were going to score. We had players in our team who were scoring. We could score goals from anywhere. So we knew we'd get chances. And in that final, we went behind twice against runner play. And not once did I ever panic. I think, we just knew. I've never had it before, and I've never had it since. Where if you concede a goal in a game, your automatic reaction, it's like someone's punching your stomach. It's just, you can't help it. It's a natural human instinct. But we never had it. We were just confident. We weren't cocky. We were very, very confident, and we knew we had players in our team who could score. We had Evo, our centre half. He'd do 1-2s and make a run. I remember Andy Reid signing for Blackpool years later, who went back to Forest. And he played, and me and Keith Sutherland, we sat on the bench, and I won't say what he exactly said. He said he'd come on for his first game for Blackpool, and he'd done a 1-2 with Evo, and Evo run past him and got in the butt, and he's like, he said in his Irish, I can't do an Irish accent, but he said, I can't believe centre half just ran past me in box. He couldn't get his head around it. But that's the way we were. We were very much very attack minded and stuff, and we just went for games, and win, draw, lose. That's how we played.
You definitely carried that style of play into the Premier League, and I think definitely a really, really entertaining season for a neutral. Although unfortunately you did get relegated. Looking back on it, I mean, obviously, kind of that's the way Ian Holloway chose to play. Do you think that was the right thing to do at the time? I mean, teams have stayed up in the past by playing more defensive. Do you think perhaps if you'd adopted a different kind of style, you might have fared better?
I don't think a different kind of style. I think the biggest mistake we made was that we were used to just going for games. And, I mean, we played our first... I remember when we got promoted, and I never watched Sunday Supplement because it's full of journalists who think they're footballers, who want to be footballers, who've never kicked a ball, in their life, trying to tell you what should be done and how it should be done. And I remember Brian Woolnough, I think he's the late Brian Woolnough, saying we won't win a corner in the Premier League. And we went and we actually had to transfer the first game of the season because we had a stand that wasn't adequate for the Premier League. So the chairman had to get this stand built, this temporary permanent one, which it did all right, it's decent to be fair, but they had to put it up in quick time and it wasn't going to be ready for the first game of the season, so we had to switch the game to Wigan. And we beat them 4-0. And we were top of the league, we were top of the Prem that night, which, is surreal. But, the thing is that we were used to going for games in the Championship. You've got to change your mentality, and the fact that what we didn't realise, or as a team, is that a big miss was Keith Southern. We missed Keith Southern. We had a midfield three of David Vaughan, Charlie Adam, and Keith Southern. They were all different. They all complemented each other. And Keith was injured, so we had a French lad coming, Elliot Grandin, and he was more of a forward player, but we had Charlie, who used to have a free role. Keith and David Vaughan did interchange, but basically Charlie could do whatever he wanted. You wanted him on the ball with that unbelievable left foot of his in and around the box, and we left this all open too much, in my opinion. And we chased games we didn't need to chase. We were 2-1 up against Fulham going for it, and the hitters on the break at home. We ended up drawing a game we should have won, and we did that too many times, and we lost games that we should have drawn, and we drawn games we should have won if we'd have just gone 2 banks of 4 and seen it out. But that wasn't our nature, and it came too late. We realised that too late, I think, as a squad, as a team. And stuff. So, I mean, we are still the highest goal scorers ever to get relegated from the Premier League. We went down by 1 point, and the season after, we'd have finished in the top half. The points tally is ridiculous. That season, if you look at that league table and look at teams who've been relegated since and what points, it's ridiculous. It was just a thingy season. And there was so many games you can look back on now going, wow, if we'd have just... West Brom away is one to mind where, if we'd have just... But we had that mentality. And teams, it was like, we have to win it. And you don't in the Premier League. A point's a big thing in the Prem. We're in the Championship, you need to win games. Championship's such a tough game. You've got to get on a roll. You've got to win games. And the biggest difference is in the Prem that if you leave yourself open like that, they very rarely miss. They very rarely miss. Teams, that's the biggest difference in the Championship, the Premiership, is that you get a ball away at Arsenal, you don't get it back, and it usually ends up in your net, 25 passes later. Or a Liverpool, or it's not always the case in the Championship. But we did realise that too late. We had an unbelievable season, it was an unbelievable journey, and we left the Southampton to beat United at Old Trafford, and they just won the Premier League, and we went 2-1 up. We were 1-0 up, then we went 2-1 up, and we were just attacking, and it's hard to say. Probably a bit too long to defend at United, but it ended up, in my opinion, what done us. But if you look at the stats, I think we are the highest goal scoring team to ever get relegated, and we went down on ridiculous points. I think Birmingham went down that year, and they won the Coca-Cola Cup, or whatever you call it now. What was it called at the time? So it was a surreal league in itself that year. But yeah, I mean, just the one other point as well is that on the first day, I remember Holloway saying 4-3-3, and he said the only time he'd change it is if we played Liverpool. He'd tweak it if we played Liverpool, and that season we'd done a double over Liverpool. So yeah, he was brilliant. He was brilliant for me. He was a fantastic bloke. He was a manager who wore his heart on his sleeve. A bit like Kevin Keegan, and he could have a meltdown and that. But it was his honesty and his enthusiasm, and like I say, he kicked every ball with you, but he had a team spirit that I've never had since. You know, I mean, and I've been involved with some great lads. Southampton, we had a fantastic squad. Preston, we had a fantastic squad. Some of the clubs I've been, but the Blackpool squad that I left the first time, you know, was an unbelievable. But this one, I mean, we're still all on a WhatsApp. We're still all friends. We're still all. It's right. I've never been involved in anything like it before, and I think we are the lowest budget team to ever get promoted to the Premier League, and I don't think that's ever, in the way the game's gone, I don't think that's ever going to change anytime soon, to be fair.
Okay, and then so after Blackpool, you sort of finished your career in the lower leagues, like Wrexham, for example. Do you think you could have played at a higher level still, or?
I mean, Wrexham was. I chose Wrexham. I'd actually agreed a deal with Bury, who was still in League One. But Wrexham offered me 35, I think it was, 34, 35. And that Wrexham offered me a 2-year deal. And the Conference was the last league I hadn't played in. I played in all 7 leagues, from lower, you know, Unibom, Prem, right up to the Premiership, and I'd scored in every league, and the Conference was the last one. And I thought, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to have to do it now. And that's the only reason I chose Wrexham, on that basis, because Bury's 20 minutes from my house. Wrexham's an hour and 20 minutes. And for 2 years, I had to travel down there every day, and I'd get out of the car feeling like Tim Man of Wizard of Oz. You know, I had more muscle injuries. It's probably not the brightest move, and you know, and that's no disrespect to Wrexham as a football club. It was a fantastic club. We got to Wembley twice again. You know, we won the FA Trophy and we got beat in the playoff final, which we should have won. We were a better team by far. I ended up ticking a box for me. It was purely to play in the Conference, and I ended up scoring. The first season was a great season we had. Second season, our manager Andy Morell had left, and we never really got going. So it sort of faded out, and then I ended up playing at Padiham, which is even lower than Conference, and Bamber Bridge, which is a league up. So it might be top 7 or top 8 or 9 leagues now that I've scored in. But it was just purely just to tick a box, really, because I could have played for Bury in the league, but at that age I thought, you know, this could be my last chance to play in a Conference. They're offering me a 2-year deal, which they weren't, you know, no one at 35 were getting 2-year deals on a bit more money than what Bury were actually offering me. So, you know, but 2 months after driving down every day, I used to drive past Bury as well, thinking, why did I just sign for them? Because I've got another hour and a half to go in car and motorways. You know, it was just traffic every day. So yeah, but you know, I don't regret anything. Like I said, I got to play at Wembley twice more with Wrexham, Wembley winner on 1 and stuff. So yeah, it was. I enjoyed it there.
Okay, and then just to finish off, really, we've got a few quick fire sort of questions for you. Who was the best manager you played under?
It's split between Strack and Holloway. You know,
okay.
I had some good managers. I mean, it's frightening if I list the managers. It's quite scary. You know, even ones who've come in temporary and stuff. But yeah, they're the two. McMahon was a good manager as well for me, because he never, you know, Steve McMahon. He was, he just let me get on with it. He knew, you know, he put trust in me and stuff. So I'd say Steve McMahon were a big influence as well. But Holloway and Strachan, just for man management, just for psychological getting in your head, you know, trying to make you a better player as a person and a player. You know, as to other managers, you know, for me, them two managers, it was more than just you being a football player. It was everything, you know. So it's pretty impossible to choose between them two, really.
So probably a difficult question, because like you said, you played with some great players over the years. Charlie Adams springs to mind, who got his move to Liverpool. Who was the best player you ever played with?
I guess, again, you know what? I've been asked this. I forgot. I think I've probably changed my mind on every time I've been asked. I mean, I could just say Matt Le Tissier, but I'd played with Tiz at the end of his career. You know, so I didn't see the best Matt Le Tissier, but, you know, he was... you can't get better than that, really. Yeah. But, I mean... Even at Southampton, I mean, I could only go off who was the best at that, who was in the prime when I was playing. You know, so even then, it's just so difficult because I played with some. I mean, Anders Svensson was a fantastic player, wasn't he? He was like the Beckham of Sweden. He scored that goal against Argentina, and we did a pre-season of Sweden that year, and he was just mobbed everywhere. So yeah, he was a good player, but it's just so much. Marion Pahal is probably one of the best all-round players. You know, Kev Phillips as a forward, probably the best strike partner as an all-round forward. But I mean, Marion, I didn't even class Marion as an out-and-out forward. Marion could play anyway. He'd play him on the left or right. You know, Fabrice Fernandez was an unbelievable player. Could chop and change. You know, when he could move the ball, but temperamental Frenchman. You know, when he was sulking, it was putain, give it all that, and off he went. So he just left Fab to sulk on his own. Beats had an amazing time at Southampton. You know, me and Beats had a great strike partnership. You know, which stemmed from being players at youth team level. You know, there's just so many players. Paul McKenna, one of the most underrated players I've ever played with, is Paul McKenna at Preston. And he got a move to Forest. He's probably one of the best players I've played with who never got his opportunity in the Premier League. But I've known Kenna since we were kids. We played against each other when I was at Blackpool at Preston. You know, never give the ball away. You know, neat and tidy little midfielder and stuff. Graham Alexander, who's, you know... There's so many. I can't really pick. I'm just going to have to say, I'm like you said, Charlie Adam, Keith, David Vaughan. There's just so many. I'd say if I have to pick one all-round player, I'd have to just say Marion Pahars, because I think Marion's. I just thought Marion, for 5'5", he just had everything. He scored, you know, some of the goals he scored in training, and he's just such a clever little player. You know, could come into little holes and always knew the right pass and stuff. It was just a shame that his career ended at Southampton with that injury. You know, he never recovered from it, in my opinion. But fantastic player.
Yeah. So you mentioned Old Trafford, Wembley.
Yeah.
What was the best stadium? I mean, there's got to be some big names in there, but what was the best?
Do you know what? I always liked White Hart Lane, the old White Hart Lane, and I don't know why. I just always liked it. I mean, obviously Uniteds and Cities and I mean, Arsenal, I didn't get to go to Arsenal until after with Blackpool, because we were playing at Highbury then. And that's a tremendous stadium, is Highbury. You know, Anfield and all that, Goodison. But I always liked White Hart Lane. I can't tell you why. I have no reason for it. You know, I'm not a Tottenham fan in any way, never have been. But I just used to like it. The pitch always used to be good. It always used to be a tiny little guy. I don't know, perhaps we were watching Gascoigne and Lineker play there years ago, you know. Or something, I don't know, but yeah, I always like playing at White Hart Lane.
Okay, I haven't actually got this written down, but playing under Ian Holloway, you must have a favourite Ian Holloway sort of funny story that stands out, perhaps.
I've loads, to be honest. You know, it's I don't know about the funniest one. I mean, he was just a charismatic person. You know, he was just like that all the time. You know, he sometimes when he first came up, he used to be. I don't know what you think, but he used to be. He did a presentation at the casino in Blackpool, and he wasn't in the day after, so he'd obviously had a few drinks, and we were training, and this kid rocks up, about 22, with full England kit, and these boots with studs like this, and our assistant manager's like, yeah. And it turns out he was the croupier for Ian Holloway the night before. Ian Holloway got steaming, and he'd asked him if he could have a trial. And he said, yeah, good day tomorrow, but lads are training. So this kid rocks up with his boot bag, his full kit on and stuff, and tries to join in. Obviously, Tomo wouldn't let him, but, you know, he just did things like that. He was just mad. He was a good mad. We were on tour, we were a pre-season tour in Devon somewhere, and he was going back to Bristol apparently. So we played this game, and we'd gone back to the hotel, and there's about 7 of us. So and one of the lads had said, "Oh, I heard him. He's going back to Bristol, so we'll all get a cheeky round of pints in." It's after the game, you know. So we're all sat there, we're having a drink, and he walks in with his missus, right? And he's clocked us, but he's pretending not to. So he's gone, and this is when he just took over as manager, and he'd gone in the other room. And it was about 6 or 7 of us, but we were all experienced players. We were no kids, but, you know, and we're all thinking, shit, what's going to happen here? And then about 2 minutes later, the waiter comes over with a big tray of beers and said, your manager says this is your last one. After this, you better all get to bed. So, yeah, And the only one, because it affected, remember when we played Southampton in the cup? Southampton beat us when I was at Blackpool. And we pretty much went down with kids. There was just me, Keith was coming back from injury. I wasn't playing a lot. Jason Newell and Rob Edwards, I think, was the only experienced players. We played in the FA Cup. So Keith Southern, I roomed with Keith, and we travelled down. So we had a pretty inexperienced team, but Keith said to me, like, you know, it got to about 10 o'clock. Do you fancy something to eat? We'll get some chips or something, you know, some fries and a club sandwich. So we ordered it, and then there's a knock at the door, and Keith opens it up, and it's a gaffer stood there with these 2 sandwiches, chips, and 2 pints. So he's like, you know, and he's hey, like, who's ordering food? Like, and Keith's like, oh my. But anyway, he come in, he let us have him and that. So, you know, like I say, he was a great man management. He was a brilliant bloke. He was brilliant for me because he got the best out of me at 30 odd. And you know, he took me to heights, you know, that I didn't think were achievable at that age. You know, so yeah, that's, like I say, I've got loads. I had 2 mad years with him. But good years, fantastic years.
Yeah. Best practical jokes? Anything that stands out in the changing room, perhaps?
I don't, best practical joke? I don't know. I mean, we used to be full of them, like, you know, lads knocking on your door, you'd open your door and there's a bin full of water and it'd just tip all over you or stuff. Or I remember when I played for Blackpool first time, me and John Hills were rooming and Mike Newell had signed for us, and we were always last off the bus, me and Hills, and we went to the reception to get a key, and he said, "Oh, you've got it." So as we come down, Mike Newell's come down and give us a key. Sorry, lads, I got the wrong one. And we were like, "Oh, right." And Mike Newell were like, even though he was a senior pro then, he was always tapped it head. And so me and Hills, he got like, he used to have obviously the chair room but single bed. So we sat there waiting to go down for dinner. Sat on the bed. I'm thinking, I feel a bit wet here. And Mike Newell had just he piss wet through both the beds and then made them perfectly. So that just ended up like, that's when Hills started chucking water at him, and then he just, you know, you couldn't do anything with Mike Newell because whatever you did, he did it twice as bad. So yeah, you're just footballers. The thing about being a footballer is you didn't have to grow up. You know what I mean? You could be a kid for as long as you wanted. It was an excuse. It was like being at school sometimes.
Would you change anything about your career, or just, you know?
Yeah, obviously, I'd like to have done better at the highest level of things like that. But I have no regrets because I always give my best. I can always look at myself in the mirror and say, you know, even if I were having a bad game, I still run around. I always give 100%. I never, even when I wasn't, you know, when I didn't like the managers or whatever, if I was asked to play, I give it my best. Because I was always, you know, as a footballer, you're also self-employed. You know, so, you know, and it is a team. And if you're you know, if you're part of the team and you're not pulling your weight, you're letting everyone else down. You know, if you're not involved or you're not, it's not their fault. You know, so you've got to be you know, and you're being paid, and you know, as a fan. So for me, no matter, I always give it, whether it in training or in games, I always give it my best. Whether it, you know, I can't always say, yeah, I play brilliant. You know, I was a bag of crap sometimes, but I always, you know, that day I was still giving it my best. It just wasn't one of my days, you know. So yeah, I have no regrets because I can always look at myself in the mirror and say I did the best I could. We had a bit of luck here and there. It could have been better, but then there's a lot of lads who I play with in lower leagues who, you know, never managed to get into the Premier League. Like I said, Paul McKenna's one of the best players I've ever played with, who never got to play in the Premiership. You know, and I think some of the players I've played with in the Premiership or played against, you think, wow, you know, this lad's been, you know, he's played in Championship all his life with Preston. He's been a magnificent. Went to Forest, captained them superbly on that thing here and stuff. And you think that lad never played in the Prem, and you know, such a fantastic player. So yeah, it's football's a bit, sometimes, you know, you roll a dice and you know, you see what happens. But you know, like I say, I have no regrets.
So I'll just last question. If you could go back in time to your academy days at Blackburn, or I guess at Blackburn, what would you tell yourself? What advice would you give yourself?
I had that installed in me. I mean, the thing is with football, disappointment stuff, there's nothing better than proving people wrong. All right, talks, you know, you can talk all you can, but, and to his credit, when I was at Blackburn Rovers, our youth team manager was called Alan Irving. Now, he released me at Blackburn. Now, he used to be mine and Beats' youth team manager. He got the Newcastle youth team job. He ended up being manager of Preston when I was there. And he also managed West Brom. Now, the most, you know, he released me from Blackburn. So, and when I signed for Southampton, he sent me a letter with Newcastle-headed notepaper about congratulations and all that. Right? So that's the big thing. So then when he got the Preston job, I turned around to Paul McKenna and I said, that's me at Preston now. And he never gave, you know, I never played under him, you know, because, you know, managers have different opinions and stuff. So just because if your face doesn't always fit at one club, it doesn't mean it won't fit at another. You've got to believe in yourself. And it's tough. It is really tough when, you know, because football's like no other job. You know, I mean, they only ever look at the top 5% of football and the money involved and stuff. But, you know, you get players who are, you know, you're lucky to get to 35, which is your retirement date. You know, I've played with loads of lads who haven't. You're only as good as your next contract. If you sign a year deal or a 2-year deal, you've 2 years in the game to get yourself another contract. It's as simple as that. Now, if you have a wife and kid and a mortgage and all that, and you're sweating on stuff like that, you know, it's not all the glamorous that it's cracked up to be. Obviously, the top half is, but then that's true in any sport. Look at golf, the top end of, you know, it's astronomical money and all that. That's the rewards for getting to the top. But it's you know, it's not always all it's cracked up to be. It's a very, very difficult profession to make a career in. Mick Conroy, who played at Burnley and Fulham, when I first got my first season at Blackpool, where I got joint player of the year, he said to me, right, go and make a career of it now. You've had a good season, now go and do it. Go and do that every year and make a career. And he's spot on. You know, like I say, it's a tough job. You can finish with injury. You've got players up and coming every year. Football's a job where you constantly have to prove yourself. You know, if Ronaldo and Messi, they've been going through this, you know, that's what makes them more remarkable. They've pushed each other on, but, you know, the season Ronaldo has a quiet season or at Messi, people are on their back. No matter all the magnificent things, the unbelievable things they've done, if they have one season where they're not at it, people are saying they passed it. Do you know what I mean? So it's a profession like any other, where everyone wants your job. Everyone's got an opinion on your job, by the way. You know, and you've got to take that. The biggest thing I found is that, and it is hard sometimes. You know, people will talk about you're crap, you're this, you're that, and all that. So you know, you're trying. I never tried to let myself get too carried away. You know, never let the highs get too high, never get the lows get too low, and because you know you miss a chance now, and it's there forever. It's on YouTube. It's on Twitter. It's on, you know, it's on Match of the Day. It's on, you know, you're broadcasting every newspaper out across the country and missing a chance. You know, and everyone misses chances. I don't care who they are. Best players in the world miss chances. It's going to happen. So yeah, it's a professional. Like, the rewards are unbelievable, but the pressures are unbelievable as well. So and you know, it's not a lot. Like I say, it's the top leagues. Yeah, you know, they only ever focus on that. They don't focus on the lower leagues. You know, your lads who play for Rochdales and stuff, who are only on a couple of £100 a week. You know, some of them, and if they get to 35 and they're lucky enough, and then they finish that career, and then they'll say, all right, cheers. Because every club, you know, once they don't want you, it doesn't matter what your lifestyle is, what, you know, bills you have to pay. They just say, we wish you all the best. You know, and you go into the real world, if you've played at Rochdale, and you might have a fantastic career on paper. You know, you might have played 500 league appearances, and you come out into the real world and they'll say, right, what experience have you got? Well, I kicked a bag off a window head for 15, 20 years. What's that good in the real world? I think the problem is that this is where football is, that on the flip side of that, you might get a kid who on potential signs for Man United and straight away he's earning 20 grand a week, more money than his family could ever hope for. In 2 years' time, you see him drop down into... And then another Premier League takes him because he's played for United. But by the time he's 20, and you see him drop down the leagues. He's had too much too soon. He's took his eye off the ball. And by 26, he's not even in the game anymore. But he's a millionaire. And on paper, he's had a crap career. You know, he's played a few reserve games and stuff. Yet the lad who's played at Rochdale, who's got a fantastic career, he's potless. So it's a funny business, is football. It's a team sport that worships, idolises individuals and rewards individuals accordingly. But, you know, your Ronaldos and your Messis couldn't do what they did on their own. They need another 10 players behind them. So, you know, make of that what you will, but it's football. It's like any profession. It's a tough, you know, world to make a career in.
I think that's it for us. Brett, thank you very much. You know, we've had fun and enjoyed it. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. It's been great for us.
Notice this wind is here. Has it been shining through? It's probably better off if the live me features anyway. But lads, thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure.
No, it's been a genuine pleasure. Thank you so much. Genuinely, it's been amazing.
No problems, lads. Take care and I wish you all the best for the future with this podcast. All right.